this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. I hope to produce more videos like this. Okay, now let's get on to intermittent fasting. I'm sure most of you or some of you are aware of this term called intermittent fasting or just fasting in general, but people now sometimes call it as time restricted eating, which is more obvious in my opinion, because as what the term implies, you restrict your eating time to a certain window. So for example, you do what we call a 16-8 kind of intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, where you eat within an 8 hours window, say from 12 noon to 8 p.m, and then for the next 16 hours you fast. Or you can do a 6 hours eating window, and then for the next 18 hours you fast. So that is intermittent fasting. It can be even 24 hours or 36 hours, but my suggestion is to take it easy, know how your body reacts to intermittent fasting first, then see what happens as you go along the way, and then of course coupled with a proper diet. In my opinion, a low carb diet for me works well because of my physiology. So you need to find out what works for you. So, but in general, most people will couple intermittent fasting or time restricted eating with a low carb kind of a diet. Okay, so what exactly happens during fasting? Okay, there are a lot of things that will go on, but key things will happen is that the organs will get to rest. So it works in normal mode, not really like turning it off, but it works in normal mode where your organs don't have to go into overdrive mode. For example, let's say your pancreas now don't have to keep working to release insulin to be able to drive your sugar level down or glucose level down in your blood. So that is what is important. It allows time for the organs or body to recover. So why is it important when insulin drops then? Because most of us who has a problem with obesity or basically fats around the areas that we don't want is probably a problem of insulin resistance. So to drive your insulin down, this will help to reduce as much insulin resistance as possible and improve your insulin sensitivity. And I'll get to that later on why that is very important for insulin to be controlled. But it also helps to get your body into the right production mode. So now the liver goes into the mode we call gluconeogenesis. So it basically makes new glucose from maybe your fatty acids or even from your amino acids when you take from protein, which is broken down. So the liver gets to turn that into new glucose. So you don't have to worry about the fact that, hey, where am I going to get my glucose if I don't take my carbs or if I don't eat? Your body has a lot of stored energy, especially for people who are obese like myself. So the liver will be smart enough to convert these energy sources into new glucose. And it also enables you to go into a state which we call ketosis. And this ketosis is very important because this basically converts your extra fatty acids into ketones, which can be used as energy for your brain and also for other parts of your body and the other cells that can use ketones as energy. That's why you tend to lose weight if you are able to first go into a fasting mode and at the same time do a low carb diet where your body has to look for sources of fuel like fats or even amino acids to be able to continue to support the organs. So ketosis is one of the key benefits when you go into a fasting mode, and of course with a proper diet it helps to drive that further. So what happens when you start eating? So when you start eating, regardless of the type of food, it will drive up insulin a certain amount. But of course, carbs will drive insulin up fast because insulin is very sensitive to glucose response. And glucose is basically coming from carbs, which is actually the simple form of glucose. But if you take fats or you take good fats, okay, and if you take protein, these will also trigger insulin responses, but much less than carbs. That's why when you start eating within a specific time frame, your body starts to react to food and your insulin increases. That's normal. You try to push down your glucose levels to prevent your blood from being too toxic. And then, of course, insulin will also start to store excess glucose around. So number one, what happened? It will start storing excess glucose as glycogen, which is the stored form of glucose in your body. So it goes to maybe your liver, then it goes to other organs and even your muscles, but there's only a finite amount, which is a small amount of storage space for glycogen, and then the extra glucose then spills on into your fats, which is around or we term it the visceral fats, which actually wraps around your organs. So then it starts to go into subcutaneous fats if you have really a lot of glucose. And lastly, it also can be stored as fats in your liver, which we term it as non-alcoholic fatty liver if you have too much glucose. But actually that comes more from fructose as well. And insulin also prevents fat from being used or inhibits fat from being used. So I mentioned in my other videos before, so insulin actually does really a lot of things. First, it drives down glucose, which is good, but then it also starts to store extra glucose as fats. It triggers responses. It's like a hormone. It is a hormone which is like a messenger which tells your fat cells to store glucose. And then it also prevents glucose or fats, it also prevents fats from coming out from your fatty cells or your adipocytes from coming out. That is what insulin does. So if you have high insulin, you will store fat, at the same time it will not allow you to use fat. So can you see where insulin will actually drive you towards? So if you have a problem of obesity, most likely you have a problem of insulin resistance. So this is one of the most helpful way to help you to lose weight and of course maintain it. For a start, if you start going into intermittent fasting, some key mistakes that you may do is that you do not consume the right type of food after you start breaking your fast. So let's say you take your first meal at 12 noon in the afternoon. You should always try to go for something that is lower in the carb, right? Because you don't want to raise insulin. You want to keep the insulin as low as possible. That's why you go for a low carb diet. The difficult part, of course, is trying to find the right type of food. I hope I can do a video on that to help people to have alternatives, but at the same time, see what you can do even at home to whip up a quick, low carb, healthy fat diet. So it's important to know the science behind when you do a fasting regimen. And it's important to listen to your body. If you do fasting and you feel pain, that's most likely because your body is trying to get used to it, or you're not used to it. And if you're not taking the right type of food to break that fast, it can also not be good for your body because it will keep going into a glucose searching state, which can maybe even cause gastric problems. So better be careful. And if you have problem, to stop. If you feel pain, not like if it's hunger pangs, then it's fine. But if it's really painful, that's to the point that you are feeling quite sick, then obviously stop. So don't go into intermittent fasting because maybe due to certain physiological problems or medical conditions, you are not advised to do that. So always listen to your body. If need to, talk to your doctor to see if this is something that you can do. It's not something that is a mainstream way of doing things, so you will probably get a lot of resistance, but know the science behind it, know why you are doing it, and know the fact that if it's better for you and if you are improving and you do see real benefits for it, then why not? So I hope you like this video. Please continue to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends so you can help them to understand the science behind intermittent fasting.